Hi, and welcome back to Still Rolling Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. I'm Matthew Montgomery. Today's guest is Bryce O'Beng. He's a former football player, and he hails from Akron, Ohio, where he went to Ashland University. He spent several years in the Ashland program as a linebacker and a fullback. After his football career, Bryce's path eventually brought him to Central Ohio, where he now trains jiu-jitsu and has earned the rank of purple belt. He's one of my primary training partners at Gracie, Ohio, and someone whose presence on the mats is felt immediately. He's a strong, technical, humble, and always working to improve jiu-jitsu player. Welcome to the show, Bryce. How you doing, man?
Thanks, Matt. I'm doing great, man. Couldn't be more excited. This is my favorite thing to do. Talk sports, jiu-jitsu, and just reminisce some about the old days. Still feel like I have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I ran into a buddy of mine in Costco like a week ago, and neither one of us had our wives with us. And we stood there and talked about jiu-jitsu for probably 45 minutes next to one of the aisles, just because he's at the gym I used to train at. And it was just jiu-jitsu for 45 minutes while everybody else is shopping.
And that's a light conversation, I feel like. I mean, most of the time I feel like I get the ball rolling and it's like I'm gonna be here for an hour and a half. And it's not a problem because then you as you're talking to people, you start to figure stuff out, and then you're like, oh wait, I gotta relive that moment. Maybe I gotta tell this person this thing next time I see him. Like, and
Yeah.
it's just good. Gets the brain going. I love it. I love it because of that. You never know what you're gonna talk about when you run into somebody who spends time on the mats.
Yeah. You get into everything they're working on and what you're working on and what you think you may have figured out in the last 6 months. How long have you been training, Bryce?
I just reached my 5-year mark back in June of this year, and that was right after the purple belt came. So I got that purple belt about 2 months before that, and then hit 5 years, and then I remember going back and like everybody was asking me like how long you been training and everything. I was just like, it's probably been like 6 years, and I was like, now it's only like 4 years, 4 years
Yeah.
and some months, and I was like, oh wow, that kind of flew by, but I never. I'm glad that I still look back a lot of times when I so weird how I found it, because like to your point, I was done with football during COVID. So, well, right before COVID started, right? So it was 2019, fall season goes. We didn't make the playoffs that year, but uh, finished football and I was still on campus, and then they sent us home. And for that, I want to say like 5, 6 months, I was just working out. So like the gym stuff you see back here was like a different version of my home gym and stuff. And everything was closed down, but I had this power rack and an Olympic place in our basement. So I was like, well, I'm still an athlete. I got to keep it. This is where the injuries come and set in. And I did that for a while, and I slowly stopped training. Right. And
Hmm.
I was like, I lift weights. Okay. I go shoot some hoops, but I was just like, I didn't have that passion that I had when I was doing football. And it's just like, you're like, okay, I got the next thing to look forward to. Like, oh, spring ball's coming up. Oh, summer's coming up, summer conditioning, all this other stuff. So you don't have anything to really like get ahead of. And I started working down when I was at grad school at OU at Dunham Sports. It's right down the street on East State Street. If anybody's been down, I know exactly what I'm talking about. And on one of my lunch breaks, I'm walking through the mall because it's attached to, this big mall. And they've done a lot. So, you go through 2 loops, basically doing my silver sneakers walk. And I see a jujitsu studio, but it was like closed because I think it was like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. They had the morning, they had the afternoon classes. And I went by and I'm just like, I've heard Joe Rogan talk about that. I should go try that out. I got nothing else to do. I used to do
Yeah.
karate back in the day, and I was like, okay, whatever. I said I'm gonna do it. Being still 22 and some change, and I still procrastinated a little bit. So it took me like probably 3 weeks before I
Yeah.
actually emailed them and not reached out. And I did my trial, and I was like, all right, this is hard. This is not what I expected. It brought me back to my days when I tried wrestling, but I didn't finish it. And I was like, okay, no, but it makes sense. Like I see it. I'm like, but I don't like that I don't know what he's talking about, but I know he's talking about something. And that's why I'm
Did
sitting
you
there watching.
did you know it was a ground-based martial art when you decided you were going to try jiu-jitsu?
I don't remember, to be honest. I
Okay.
think I did know because I assumed I equated it with MMA. And I equated it to being on the ground, like being in an arm bar. That's the most thing I've equated. So I
Okay.
assumed it would be down there. But yeah, I remember watching, going. So I did my 2-week trial. I was like, hey, I'm gonna sign up. But I wasn't sure if I was going to be good at it or something I could really get into because everybody was at the time was, 180 pounds, 5'10" to 6'1". I'm my barely 6 foot on a good day, 240 pound self, and then like I got leg muscles and shoulders, and I'm just sitting there just like, I mean, I could try it. I always thought of myself as a small guy, so like I said I'm gonna try it out. So I signed up for the monthly subscription just in case I need to, you know, not not go anymore.
Just
And
in case you
then
didn't take.
just in case. And so I would go to the night classes, and I would stay for the advanced even though I was a beginner. And at that time, I was just like, well, I'm going with the white belt people, but I'm like, I could tell the hard part for me was that there's the sports side of like, I just know kind of how to move my body already. Like most things they're talking about, I'm like, okay, that's just a variation of this football technique or this basketball or this baseball thing. So I'm like, I'm already bridging most of the gaps. So a lot of times when it was like time to roll, like I would drill with people that didn't know or somebody hired, but I would go with some of the upper belts. So I immediately
Hmm.
found like I didn't know it wasn't a thing not always as a white belt to roll with the black belts and the brown belts, but I would
Yeah.
like so I would go to the professor of the school, which is Carlos and stuff. Is hell of a triangle if you ever roll with the guy.
Yeah.
Um, and I would roll with Joe. He was a brown belt. There's a purple belt named Justin, and they would twist me like nobody's business. I'm sitting there. I'm like, why is my arm just going away from me? Why, why,
Yeah.
why are these joint locks and all that stuff happening? I was just like, but I'm surviving longer than I think somebody in my level could do. So I was just like, okay, it's probably good. And so I did that for a month or so, and then I got to going to. I found out there was a morning class. So there was a 6 a.m. Rolling one, and it was the classes were still pretty small. But I was like, one day I was like, shoot, I'm gonna go on a Thursday because my body's still set up to do that because of football. Tuesday, Thursday, 6 a.m. lift. It's in my DNA. So I showed up for that 6 a.m. class for Mr. Rob Rittenhouse. He's a black belt now. He just got his first stripe actually a couple weeks ago. So, proud of him, and it's been cool to see that brown belt transition. But show up, he's a brown belt at the time. I think he said he had just retired from the military, I think. But he's probably like 300 to 320. Like he's a big dude. He's like
Big
I'm sitting
dude.
there, I'm just like, all right, this seems more of like people that are built like me. I'm like, this is gonna work. And
Big
then
man
we started
jujitsu.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we do the class, and Rob is a very technical and knowledgeable person, and he spoke the sports way for me. So it was like from there I was fired up again. I don't know if it was because it was the morning time and your blood hasn't started pumping yet, or if it was just him, but it was just like everything was clicking. This would seem like it was my forte now.
Yeah.
So I started going to 6 a.m. with Rob, and that first day that I rolled with him, I I did like a backdoor escape, and I remember him looking at me as like, "Did you wrestle back in there?" I was like, "Uh." There was just space there, and I went there. But
Yeah.
he proceeded to do his patented pillow choke slash Americana slash I don't even know what on me like 4 or 5 times in a 5 minute round. But I was just like, "Hey, let's go again." So
Yeah.
and then going to his class, it was nice because it helped me relive like the not necessarily relive, but it put me into a familiar place in a new environment that I wasn't aware of. So that he would when we do our warm ups, it's like we're sweating, we're huffing. It's just like you've been around sports at the college level. It's like you just go, and it's like it's that dynamic warm up. And I was just like, this is what my body knows how to respond to. And so we would go and go, and eventually that morning crew grew to like 20 people, and it would just became like its own like morning versus night, as
Yeah.
type of thing that goes on. And I was there for the entire time I was at OU and a little bit after I stopped going to school, but I was still working down there. And then we decided to move up here because my girlfriend had gotten a teaching job down the street from us, which for her was a lot better because she was driving maybe 35, 40 minutes one way to work each day, but I only had like an 8 minute drive. And so it was like, all right, it's time to finally flip it. So I did a longer commute for a little bit to Athens, but I stayed there and trained. And then I started splitting time over at Robin's place, which is who gave, Carlos and Rob their
Carlos.
black belts. And so I started going in the morning. I think it was Ruben at first, and Matt's did the 6 a.m. And I would go I didn't know the schedule other than it was 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. So I just kind of showed up, and I got to roll with people, and it was like, um, The patented line I think I should probably get put on a t-shirt would be the you don't move like somebody your size. And but I learned a lot. It was a different environment. It was a lot of different techniques. It was a different way of teaching. And I was like, then I was splitting time between the two. Uh, Before I moved down here formally for work, I was going on my days off to Gracie, and then the other days I would go to Athens. So it was like back
Wow.
and forth, back and forth. Yeah, and it was a cool time. And then a year went by, and one day Oscar was just like, "Hey, you've been practicing your self defense," and I was just like, "Definitely." Didn't know that there was a different curriculum. I've been doing
Right.
what I had
Yeah.
learned up in the
Yeah.
other one. So
Yeah.
I started doing all the stand up self defense stuff, and I got to train with Zach, the morning guy, and another Matt, or like but on Sundays, and we would, did all the self defense, and then we eventually did the purple belt test, which was, I will say, my heart rate hasn't gotten that high in a while when I
For the
did it.
purple belt.
For the purple belt test, it was because we did that like live against, if you're in the streets, self defense type of thing, and I got put with like Luke, and then a couple of the black belts I had never met, and I was sitting there, and I looked at my heart rate monitor after the fact, and it said it was like at 98% of max heart rate. And I was
Yeah.
sitting there, I was like, yeah, it felt like it, but it
Yeah.
was it was exciting because it was like, all right, I know I can do this stuff without thinking, and that next step of like um progression, which is something I always try to go off of. You see, it's like the Into the Storm shirt, which is one of the buffaloes that like to run towards the danger, not but they run towards the eye of the storm because they know they'll get out of it sooner, which is kind of the personality I take with a lot of things, which is just like, just go into it, don't be afraid. And yeah. So hopefully that was a cool summary, but
No, I
it was,
like it.
just a
That
little.
you hit a few good points. Number one, I've heard multiple people look over at you and say he doesn't move like a man that size normally does. And it's funny because I'm usually I'm another one of the big guys in class, and so I hope that I can move athletically, as well as some. I know I'm not as fast, but yeah, you definitely surprise people with your ability to move for somebody that's in the mid 200s. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean, it's funny because it's like I don't think that jujitsu has been the only time that I've heard this. I think the funniest thing was growing up as I loved basketball growing up.
Yeah.
Surprise, being from Akron.
Right.
But nobody would assume that I was either as fast as I could or my feet could be as good as they were. They were like, how you move like that? And I was just like, well, and I was
A
just
big
like,
man with good
because I did
feet. That's important. I mean,
that's
that's
all
what you're
you
looking for
needed. And I was
in
convinced I was gonna be
basketball players or
6'5".
football players. Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
was
have
convinced. I was like, I'm gonna make it.
my best friend's kid right now. He just turned 15, and he's a sophomore in high school. He's 6'5", 6'6", 300 pounds, and his feet move. So he's being recruited, nationally right now. He's on Ohio State's radar, Indiana's radar, Michigan State. He's got some offers from the MAC already, which they can't actually talk to him yet until April is when they can talk to him if he's not at a camp or on an unofficial visit.
Is that because of the age, or is that because of like the school year?
Sophomore. Yeah.
Sophomore. Okay.
So after the D1 colleges can't talk to you until I want to say it's May or June after your sophomore year of high school.
Okay.
But
Sounds right.
He's already, they all know who he is, and he's rated right now. He's the top tackle in Ohio for his class. And he's top 5 at any position for his class in Ohio. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. He wants to be a Buckeye. We're hoping that offer, comes to fruition. It's a good kid.
I'm hoping for him too.
Yeah. Someday hopefully we see him on the jiu-jitsu mats. We've got some other football boys on our mats.
Tell him to find Joel when he had a chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just good. That's good. I forgot about the recruiting process. It's been so long.
Yeah.
More than 10 years now. I can't believe I forgot that.
Well, you make it sound like a long time, but you are you're a young one. You are the youngest person I've had on the podcast so far. And I'm only 25 episodes or so in, but yeah, you are the youngest, I think. Are you mid-30s?
I'm 28.
So you're
But
definitely, yeah, you're the first under 30, I'm sure.
which is different. A lot of times I deal with I get with you're wiser than your years a lot of times.
Yeah.
I think some of that's the fact that we've got two kids now, one on the way, and we've become parents in the last 3 years, which has been its own,
Well, you're a
journey
mature
too.
dude.
Appreciate.
You know, that's another thing that I notice in jiu-jitsu. Obviously, we know we know people's relative age, but I don't look at any of my training partners any different as far as how I consider them as a friend on the mats.
Hmm.
Age really doesn't have anything to do with it at all.
No, no,
You know,
not at all. Not at all. I think a lot of that comes because you don't get a lot of knowledge other than just like, hey, we rolled and we're both tired. And so
yeah,
you just kind of you take people for where you're meeting them. And I think a lot of times you can see people for who they are a lot more times than just like what you would assume based on everything. Because everybody's wearing the same thing, basically, the same uniform,
yeah,
other than being purple or white.
right, yeah,
Occasionally, nogi, like I've said before, is I like to be the what's it called, the wolf in sheep's clothing type of deal. I love wearing my white no-gi shirt.
yeah.
It just looks cleaner.
I got some of the white ones, and then sometimes I'll go and line up all the way down at the end when we're no gi, and
Exactly.
I'll be the day one. I'll be the trial student some days.
I will say sometimes it's easier to tell if somebody's going on the mat just by the how hard it is for them to walk. Sometimes you're like they have
Yeah,
that like, oh, it looks like I'm sore. I'm like, you're gonna be
shoulders
triangle.
kind of
Trust me.
rolled forward. Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah, it's like
I think after you've been grappling for a certain amount of time, I think that there is a little bit of a walk, or your body conditions in kind of a way where you can kind of see somebody say, yeah, that guy can grapple, and it's not cauliflower ear. I think it's a little bit how you carry yourself. Um,
absolutely. And I will, to your point, even to that, it always reminds me of like when I started training, I didn't know how many muscles I didn't have. I will say that like I feel like well when I started I was like I was in shape, I was strong, I could make movements, but I feel like it's like somebody took like one muscle at a time and just put it in each place in my
mhm.
shoulders, in my back, or like in my core. And like I didn't realize how much more room I had to physically develop until I started going on the mats, which you know maybe I just didn't train hard enough back in the day. That's the good way to look at it, but
No,
it was
it's
cool.
different.
It is
You
different.
know, I used to cross country ski,
Mhm,
and it was something I grew up doing, and my family did it, and so I always kind of knew how to do it, and it was always easy to me. And then a couple times I took people cross country skiing, and they said it was the most difficult thing they've ever done in their life, and
mhm.
they just couldn't breathe, and um, so I think it's just a conditioning thing. You use different muscles for different things.
I will
Um,
say when I got into jiu-jitsu and you start to go down the algorithm rabbit hole on accident, like you watch one video, one friend sends you something, and magically it's all in your feed. The one video that always resonated with me was that like you think you're in wrestling shape, you're not even in football shape. You think you're in football, yeah, like if you think you're in jiu-jitsu shape, well, you're not even in like soccer shape or something like that. And it was just like
mhm,
that, like comparison to the grappling sports of being the epitome of conditioning, the epitome of like I could do this all day.
yeah,
And I think that was like when you talk about like being done with sports or looking back on that next step, it's like I always thought I was like, what is my next thing to fulfill? And I always thought that I was kind of weak at conditioning or weak at the cardio side, not necessarily the like go all day. Cause I used to play for a long time. And that was the thing I ran into in college was like I had a hard time because I didn't have a long time to warm up. It was like give it all and then take it away, and I had half the amount of time that I had to do stuff. So my body was coming from high school. I would play 2 hours straight. Wouldn't come off
mhm,
the field. You just had to figure out to like just get into the next thing. Go, go, go. You gotta make this play go. And I got to college and I was just like, why do I suck so bad at this? No matter what I did.
yeah,
But then I got to this and I was just like, oh, this is how I'm gonna do it. This is gonna get me to the thing I've been missing. So it's like when I go back to like where I met Rob, he would do these like morning or like infinity rounds where it was just like it was one person, maybe it was like you're about to get ready for your test or you had competition coming up and it was like you stay in, I'm going to go with you. Now I'm going to get the next best person to go with you. Then we're going to get the third best. Then we're going to get the first best again. Then we're going to have the person that just started. Then we're going to keep going. And you would just go for like 30 minutes straight. And it was just like, you going to break? And it was like, no. It was
Yeah.
like, but it was something that I really was like that. Like, this was the piece I've been asking for, and it's being gets me. Let's seize it, type of deal.
I've been enjoying some of the Monday and Wednesday night classes. You have the fundamentals on one side and you have your advanced, and then when you combine, we've been doing round like a Shark Tank. But if you're a color belt, you stay on the mat. So it's round after, it's good 45 straight minutes of it's mostly white belts, but eventually, due to numbers or if somebody did take a break, you'll get some color belts coming through, but you're not coming off. It's person after person after person, and you're in a disadvantaged position starting out. I enjoy it. I like that little bit of a challenge to see how I can pace myself in a way that I can roll for that 45 minutes straight without a break.
Right. And I always find those times valuable because you're like, I can't get this move to work unless I do momentum. And then you find a way. It's like I was thinking like the game units, like kind of Mortal Kombat, where it's just like, okay, I got 10 units of energy. That's like move requires 10 units. I only have 2, but I have to do the move in order to win. So like you find a new, catalyst way of getting things to happen. And you're like, well, I actually didn't realize I didn't need that much strength. I think the main one being like, I think of the like the cross collar choke. A lot of times people are like self-flex up. You're like, just move your wrist a little bit and just nice shrugs. And then you're good. And you're like, you can come up with that energy any day of the week. But
that's you showed me in the bow and arrow. You're like, turn his collar out. I never did that. I'd get the bow and arrow and I would just burn, and people would tap, but you flip that out and it's a sharper rope.
Yeah. And I was like, it's just the physics of it. It's like, I think the general does a good job of like showing you that type of stuff too. That Wednesday time where it's just like, just do this. Same thing with Mike. It's just like, make it so simple when you kind of take the freedom out of it. And I think that's a weird kind of connected dots type of deal. Is I think a lot of times when you deal with somebody who's like been doing it a long time, or they come at it with like no win or lose type of thing. Because I think our gym is nice because you have some people who are competitors. You have some people who are just like, I'm learning a new skill. Some people are like, I don't know what today's bring, but I'm here. And you'll get that taken away of like, if you're not competing, you get that, dude, just get the choke. Like every time I go to Mike's class, every time I sit there and I hear him talk, I'm just like, he's being so casual about it. Why am I being so rigid? I put myself into a box because I was so, intent on getting this one thing to work. But that's a lesson on me a lot of times. It's that mirror back at you as you train too, because you get to see that like, hey, the things that are valuable everywhere else in the world, or you've gotten you to where you're at, may not be helpful here, but they're still useful. Don't forget them, but like know how to turn the dial up and down, kind of like on a soundboard. Like it just puts a smile on my face a lot of times. Like you'll probably see me in the car, just like, you got me, and stuff like that. But it's just so weird how it connects. So, as I'm talking to you now, I'm like sitting here, I'm just connecting more and more dots the more I get into it. Like you said, when you're at the grocery store, you're talking for 45 minutes. I'm like, ooh, we could go down this rabbit hole. We could go down this one.
Well, it's a fun thing. So, neither one of us are black belts. So, not only does every black belt say they don't know anything, we definitely don't know everything. But one thing I'm enjoying at this point in my jiu-jitsu is, and I talked to a guy named Jeff Kingsley about it, and he talks about the breadth of everything that. So like your white and blue, you're learning a wide breadth of stuff. And then when you hit purple, that's when you start getting depth in those things. And, and it's not going to be everywhere. It's going to be in things that are specific to your game. You're going to get that depth of those things, but you're also going to see where they start connecting. And yeah, okay, people understand there's chains and stuff that you'll see, but even outside of like your typical chains, you start seeing something when the general is showing something, a move that we're going to be drilling. A lot of times he'll get to a spot and I'm like, well, I can also go here, here, and here. I could also, let him hand me that so I can go take that. And I'm enjoying that piece of it now where I've got an understanding enough that I'm absorbing what he's showing and I'm going to go drill that. But I see where those connections already are before I do it. And I'm able to think about it in a more holistically way other than I'm doing this one choke and I don't know how to ever get back here, unless I'm here. You know what I mean? And I think
Right.
that's what it's like for newer people, they don't know how to get to that position.
Yeah, sometimes I don't know if you feel the same way, but I do sometimes wish you could like not know or come into it with a fresh mind because there's just I don't know how to describe it, but I think a lot of times it just is like if I didn't know this, I wouldn't have failed so hard in this aspect, or just I wouldn't have gone, or like I would like if you take competition because when we compete, you're just like the main thing is why did I go for that? And I put myself in a bad position. And I think that happens when you know too much where you're like, I'm too focused on this outcome that I've been told is the chain,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're like, okay, you get on mount, you isolate the arms, you bring it across the body, maybe you take the back or something like that. And it's just like, why did I try to take that back? He was giving me his collars. Like, what was the point of that? You
Yeah.
spent all this energy and this unsmooth, this like, I just muscled this, which I try not to ever do. But
Yeah. You're driving too
and
fast to see the
see the accent. Just
yeah.
be there. And, maybe it comes back. Like I've heard plenty when you said like like black belts say they know nothing. It's just like every person who's got a black belt, I've always heard is now the learning really begins.
Mm-hmm.
You always hear that you're like, wow,
Yeah.
that's gonna be such a fun reset.
Well, and to be honest, I think that, you hear it a few times and, like I'm imagining white belt me hearing a black belt saying, okay, it's time to start over, or now the real learning, or whatever the adage that they choose to use. And you're going, this mountain is such a big mountain. What do they mean? That's not the top, you know? Like
Yeah.
you've been doing this a decade. You still don't know what you're doing.
Mhm.
Where does this lead?
Yeah. You put it back into perspective there because I forgot how big the mountain was for a second. I was like,
Yeah.
I've been just trying not to get choked out
Well, and
this last couple of weeks.
you,
But
well,
it
you weren't a blue belt that quit, right? You're a
no,
blue belt
no,
that didn't quit. He's purple
this is
now.
true.
So,
Yeah, I forget about that. I always I I go back to my like when I was doing karate as a young kid. I was like, I think I was in third grade or so, but I remember putting in my head that was like, you can't stop till you get to this point. And I quit. And I
mhm.
still was bothered by it when I came back into jujitsu because it was like when I was a kid, at the time, you don't have as much control, right? You're a third grader, you rely on your parents to get there. We had actually moved and it was kind of unrealistic. And I always look back and I'm just like, well, did you, but did you not? But it was like it's always like, all right, lock in for the long haul. Just keep showing up one day at a time. Make it each day. What today will suck, tomorrow might not suck. And it's like, um, it's kind of a way I was able to rationalize it and get to like just keep showing up piece was that it was like if you only have one picture, you're only going to focus on that one image, and it's a lot harder to forget it. But if you have 1,000 pictures, you might remember each individual piece, but all you see is this big photo picture of it. So it's
Yeah,
like that idea of just do it, just keep doing it. Just do it 1,000 times, do it a million times. One day does not define you. Some instances will be that you only have one opportunity to take it, right? It's you didn't buy this stock or you didn't sell this thing or you didn't go to this one place. That's a one off. But most things are like, hey, if you just keep doing it over and over again, every data point that you get, every piece is going to be a big collage, kind of like those I don't know who that painter was, but they were very famous for stippling, and they did it with colors. That one that's in it's the lady in the park and whatever. But that picture is 1,000 millions of little dots of paint, and they're all just the primary colors. And then I think it's the primary colors, and it makes every color, and it makes full images of people sitting and doing this thing. And it's like that's what a lot of things are.
I mean, so that example, I don't know that piece of art. Like, you know, I don't know that piece of art. But what I imagine based on that analogy is, you know, how when people will take, you know, they'll make like a big mural of Michael Jordan, right?
Mhm.
And it's made entirely of small pictures of Michael Jordan, you
Mhm.
know, and
Mhm.
Robin uses an example of a jigsaw puzzle, you know, where you take the box, you haven't even seen the outside of the box, and you dump the puzzle on the ground. Uh, and then if you're a day one person, here's the first piece. You have no idea the context of how it's going to connect to any of the other pieces, and you don't even know what it's going to look like at the end.
Mhm.
But there's your first piece, and then you get another piece, and then another piece, and eventually a couple pieces connect, and then big batches will connect as you get further in the puzzle, and you can work on specific things like edges. You can find the edge of the puzzle and start working all right your way around, because now you kind of know how the game is structured.
Mhm.
Um, I like the
Strategy.
analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I think you say that too, and it's just like I think some people would listen to that example and think wrongly about jujitsu. It's just like, I'm just trying to solve the puzzle. It's like, no, you're excited about what it could be. And
right.
that's where that beauty comes into it, because there's not a lot of things in life where you get to go, um, I don't know what it will be, but I'm looking forward to seeing how it turns out.
Yeah.
And yeah, and this comes with wisdom, as they would say, but
Well,
but
and the puzzle
it's
will change, or you know, you're not going to finish the puzzle. The puzzle's just going to be a smaller part of a bigger puzzle. That first puzzle was that small picture of a Jordan. Um, you know, so
and then it becomes the whole, maybe it was the second finals where they won the back to back, and you're like, it's just this tapestry of continuation. I don't know. I'm glad I found this space. I think a lot of
yeah.
times that transition of, like, you to bring props, like the youth thing is like, I think a lot of people my age, they're like, they get to a point where they feel comfortable, or they feel it's okay. Like, I've accomplished the things, and then they solidify in that space of like thinking, where it's like and I say that as like the confidence that comes with it, or the authority that you bring to certain things, or just the way that you solve problems becomes your way. And
Mm-hmm.
it's only going to last so long, though. You still got to be willing to think and explore and one up yourself, or feel the pain of, I lost this. Because I think after a certain point, I feel it sometimes too, where you don't want to lose anymore, which was kind of my like first half of adulthood, I'd say, my current adulthood, where it was like that, graduate high school up to a point now. That first half was like, I will admit, as I backtrack, I was like, in high school, if you know Akron public schools, good people, probably not. Don't hate on. Don't assume that nothing did come out of it. But sporting wise, we did have struggles. So we had St. V and Hoban to compete with,
Yeah.
and we took some losses on the chin.
Yeah.
Regardless of individual performance or whatever you did, it was not fun to, at the end of the day, be like, yeah, hey, how'd you guys do? We lost. So I tried to remedy that in college. And that's why I went to Ashland, and I went there because I learned, I was like, at the time they going in, they won the conference championship the year before. And I was just like, I need to be a part of that. I need to learn
Yeah.
how to be great,
How to be on a winning team.
how to be on a winning team. And so I went full in. I went to a place, I was challenged, and I think everything that I've learned, I've been able to put to use, and I appreciate the time. But now, as we get into it, it's like, hey, if I kept that mindset, I would become obsolete after a certain point, because sometimes you have to push hard. Sometimes you have to be patient harder.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to be willing to be like, it's not a total loss, or just reframe it. It's kind of like, or like the salesman approach of like, there's no such thing as no, there's just input, right? Is that
Yeah.
you gotta be able to take the moment and actually find the key pieces to it to solve it. And it's
It's
very
like
like a,
uh
yeah.
it's like the Jocko Willink good, you know. Something
Hmm.
doesn't go your way, good. It's an opportunity to improve. I can figure that out.
Hmm.
Um, you know, and obviously a lot of his stuff is from the military, but jiu-jitsu has been central in his life in and out of the military.
But I mean, the military's, I think, found its way into even sports specifically. I think of my like my defensive coordinator was there's two things that always stuck out was he said the wolf pack. So, you're in this as a brotherhood, but then also like do your job. And I think that was the big thing I heard from the military a lot of times, like do your job, be reliable, approach it, don't be the last one in the room type of thing. Always be if you're not early, you're late, like all
Yeah.
those things. But they
At,
they
at
they are
Ohio State,
valuable.
all of our special teams were named after military special forces. So, recon was our punt coverage, and
Yeah.
Rangers was kick coverage, um so we had military people come in and speak all the time to the team. Colonel Gadsden and some other folks. Uh, and I think that it's you know obviously anybody that's in the military is going to be on some form of a team, whether they're in a squad or a squadron. It's a team effort, and so you're indoctrinated into that. And so when you can bring that to sports teams where, and I'm not going to talk any noise about Akron public schools. My wife, she graduated from McKinley in Canton. Um,
McKinley.
and yeah. Yeah. So a lot of times kids, at least on, our football teams, a lot of these kids came from areas where maybe, other than their football team that they grew up playing on, they didn't have much of a team. And so when you can keep building that and create a team environment, um, you know, it's a life lesson that I think everybody can hopefully get an opportunity to have, because you can't do things
Getting
on your own.
No, no, and it's the I think a lot of my this like I said that first half of things growing up is like my second half has been like the idea of how can you help others? How can you like it doesn't hurt to actually be patient and tell people what could be helpful to them. And I think that kind of plays into a lot of other things along the mats, but like on the mats specifically, how often do you just like finish a round? You're like, wow, I just died like four times. But also they're like, hey, but you could do this instead. And
Yeah.
so next time you go on, you pass it on, and you're just like, even though it's an individual sport, you still have some way to have a team aspect to
Well, you
it.
can't
Like,
do jujitsu by yourself.
no,
How are you going to do it? I mean, obviously, okay, there's training dummies and stuff, but like, you're not going to get good if you don't have training partners that make
no,
you better.
no, no. Yeah. You just
So that's
continue it. Was it's not passive torch, but there's something else that goes along the lines. But it will come
well,
back
you
to me
you you
eventually.
help the next generation. I mean, that's really the crux of it. That's
Mhm,
so I've mentioned it on the show a bunch, and that I'm in there in the mornings, and I go help with the fundamentals class.
mhm,
And Matt Wattenberger's always thanking me for helping him with the fundamentals class, and the white belts are always thanking me for showing them, this and that. I get as much out of going in there as anybody else in that class. I mean, yeah, okay, I've done arm bars before. I know back escapes. I know these things that we're going over, but it's shoring up my fundamentals. It's making me better on the basics. It's
mhm,
also helping me think about, you know, and a lot of people talk about this. If you start learning how to teach jujitsu, it makes your jujitsu better, because you have to think about how to articulate every piece of what you're trying to do. So you're thinking about it step by step by step and getting the
mhm.
details. And so you're getting those extra mental reps. So I should be thanking them. Um, they give me as much as I give them, in my opinion.
I always try. I always
So
try. I think it's always trying to like you had said earlier, and I try. I don't believe it half the time, but that whole idea of humble is like I'm like even there's been plenty of times where I've gone to that fundamental class and I'm like it's a new white belt and it's like somebody that was maybe is a very high level wrestler. They used to play football. Maybe they're just a great ultra marathoner. They just got cardio for
yeah,
days, but like they win, and I'm just like guys, you won the round. Because I was trying to be of like, can you play multiple games? And
hmm
so like being a bigger dude, I always feel like you always have the option to muscle your way out of it. But can you win with just turning your wrist a different way or covering your face. And I will say that there's been times where it's like somebody who maybe got their third stripe as a white belt, and I was just like, dude, you're way more technical on that than I am. You would have won
Hmm.
here. I just know how to. I've been choked there plenty of times that way. I know you're gonna give up in 30 seconds. So I'm like,
Well,
but it was tight.
well, you and I, you understand it as much as I do. Being when you're a big guy doing jujitsu, you get away with stupid shit because you're
Hmm.
bigger and stronger, right? You get away with stuff that the 150-pound guy is never ever going to get away with doing. So they become more technical early on in their jujitsu than at least me. I can't speak for everybody, but I got I got away with a ton of dumb stuff for a while when I was mostly training with other white belts that didn't know better, you know. Um, and then eventually I started getting older, and you're not there yet, but buckle up, because when you I think once I got into my 40s, um, you know, that's why that's why
There's weight
NFL players
classes.
are way done. Well, wage and age. That's why there's a master's division. Is I can handle most of the young guys that come in, and that's fine. But the second they become technical, I told Nate Lemieux, shit, he's been doing jujitsu like a year and a half, and he's a I think
Really?
it's I mean yeah he's
Single?
he's a newish guy, man. He blew right through
Yeah.
um straight through white belt, but he remembers all the details, and he's young, and he can move, and he's still got his and this is going to get me into another point that I like about what we do at Gracie, Ohio, is merit will get you promotion because Nate is extremely technical. Matt Wattenberger, he pulled out the athletic tape one morning, and I think I'm getting close to a stripe.
Hmm.
So, I'm like, oh, maybe I'm striping up. And he pulls two strips of athletic tape off. He's got them on his fingers. And he calls Nate up, which Nate was already a blue belt at this point. I'm like, well, okay, we usually give stripes on the way up. So in my head, I'm like, well, if Nate's getting a stripe, I'm the only other, guy in here like that would be above that. And then he
Hmm.
threw two stripes on Nate. And I was like, oh, I was like super happy for him. But uh,
I think I remember
Matt's done
that
that
morning.
twice. There's another guy.
Yeah.
He put three stripes on one guy at once.
Yes.
On his blue belt. What's his name? I've only rolled with him a couple times, but
It's not
super
Jamin.
tight. No, it's not Jamin. I'm
Um.
talking about a blue belt.
Yeah. 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 Well,
Three straight,
okay.
three blue belt stripes one morning.
I think I was there for that day too. And I think
And
yeah. Yeah. Go no. Go ahead.
and he deserves it. He's
Yeah.
good. He's really good at jujitsu. And so, there's a lot of schools that, they don't do that because they worry about, X number of classes, or they worry about, somebody else might wonder why they're not, progressing as quickly as the other person,
Hmm.
which, that gets into the whole conversation about comparison being the thief of joy.
Hmm.
But anyway, I'm glad that we promote based on merit. And I'm sure that there's some time and classes and things like that. But when you got somebody that's good, I'm glad that they're willing to promote. Um, but
I 100%.
these younger
Yeah.
guys, I told Nate, I think right as he was probably getting his blue belt, I said, Nate, you're going to blow right by me. Like I already know that you are going to surpass me. You might lap me at some point.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a little bit of youth, and it's a little bit of he's just one of those guys that just remembers all the details first time.
And proud. I mean, to your point, I think that's how I get a purple belt too. I was just like, there was eventually just like you get a narrative about, hey, you roll good, you get execute well, even when you go against like you're doing all these things well. To your point though, it's like I've never not been like I remember when I did get my blue belt was people who started my class lapped me, but I was like, but I but I what do you mean we go every single day? I thought we had the same input
Yeah,
based on your, and then I was just being like, no, just show up again.
yeah.
And just it'll come when it comes. Like that's the whole point. And then, that even has switched. And it's like it's it's good to it is good to know because I think sometimes I hear a lot about things online from just like gyms that were just like, hey, this person showed up but you hear about them going to like a competition and they get the floor mopped with them. Because one,
Mm-hmm.
they jump levels and they jumped maybe a weight category or just like a specific scenario. And you're like, you don't want that to happen to people. But I think that to your point, the people who can roll, and the people that can execute, and you don't have to worry about it for them. And that's why it's
Yeah.
okay for them to go forward.
I've seen it firsthand. We had at my old gym, and I'm not going to mention which one of them, but there was a guy that showed up to the gym with a blue belt. So, you know, however he decided he was a blue belt or whoever promoted him, I don't know. The first time I rolled with this guy, I'm not kidding. It was like rolling with a guy in his first like month or two of jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
And and I've never accused anybody of
Picked up. Yeah.
promoting
I
themselves.
yep.
Never once. Not one time. But this guy, I was like, what is going on here? And I wasn't the only one. There were other people who were like, what is the deal with this?
Yeah.
And the school we were at, attendance was a huge part of the way that they did promotions. And so like this guy had one more stripe than I did. This is a dude that, I'll crush every time.
Mm-hmm.
And he's striping up, and you're like, like people around me, like people are talking about it. They're like, what is going on? And somebody told me at one point, number one, you get into this whole worrying about what other people are doing, being a problem. But then also I heard the insight about people will be promoted based on their own floor and ceiling, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that makes sense. So, it should be harder for the competition guy to get promoted. It should be harder for somebody that's naturally an athlete, maybe to get promoted,
Mm-hmm.
than somebody that just is not going to have, certain attributes or whatever the issue is. But that's sometimes it's hard to see because you're working hard and
I
you're
agree.
like, what is going on? But
But you kind of there's those times where you do train, you just kind of hit a like, oh, I'm getting better and I can feel it. And other times you're like, I didn't know I was surviving. But the personal merit piece is like that one. It kind of solidifies some of that I dealt with for a long time because the first gym I was at, everybody there's one person said that they were white belt for 8 years, but
uh,
they were training, but they were also deployed at times, and they came back, and it was just like, but they made it to the top. Um, the thing about it was though that it was during a different time though, and it kind of made sense to me as you said that, where it's like it's a different time of learning. Before, when people were getting into jiu-jitsu, they didn't necessarily have as many online seminars. They didn't have as many people who were black belts or people who had trained with the Gracies or any high level MMA guys, and they wouldn't be exposed to the information as quickly as we can get it. So I
dude,
know
it's
there's that big
crazy.
push a lot of times where people are just like, well, you got promoted too quickly. Like there's that one guy who got his black belt in 3 years, right? But they're like, but there's a lot of different levels to your point with everybody's floor to ceiling. Like some
Mm-hmm.
people just get there. You go wrestle with Gable Stevenson right now if you just
Oh,
hop on the mats. Like,
JD Bergman just showed up in our gym. Do you
yep,
have you rolled with him yet?
I did roll with him.
Okay.
I got stood back up too, and I was proud of myself.
Did you? Good,
We
because
got that, and I got back up.
that was like a whole other level of freaking explosiveness, and that dude, unbelievable. And if you're listening to this, you don't know who JD Bergman is. He was a Ohio State wrestler, heavyweight national champion. He wrestled for the New York Athletic Club for years. So professional wrestler, and not in the WWF or E sense. Like this guy was, an apex athlete.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, he's in his mid 40s, but he still just mopped the floor with me. And he's technically a white belt.
So, and technically,
And actually, it was funny because I saw him rolling with one of our black belts the first day I saw him. It was Noki, going back to not knowing what rank people are. He was rolling with one of our black belts, and I was like, "Who is that dude?" I thought he was like, maybe he was like an instructor from like Super System or something had dropped in, and the guy I was rolling with, he goes, "No, he's a white belt. He goes to my church." And I said, "That's not a white belt. Like, that's not what I'm looking at." And he goes, "Oh, well, this is who he is." And I said, "Okay, all right, now I get it."
yeah.
Um,
It's to the point. I was just like, I'm like, I I was quickly reminded, I'm like, that's the different level. Because when I was going JD,
yeah,
it was like, I was like, he had answers to his answers, and I think that's the big thing that you could tell with people who don't, who had, who didn't do sports back in the day or just getting new to this stuff is that like, okay, he did it, but he didn't stop going. He didn't stop trying until he got what he wanted, and that's like. But I got very excited when I rolled there. I was like, oh. I got to stop thinking for a second. I had to just
yeah,
like do what was natural, and I was like, but there was holes, and I was like, this is what I need. So I was like, I gotta
yeah.
like, I need you to tell me more. Plus, my daughter's wrestling.
Is she?
I was like, I need, yeah, she's her second year too, so she's. I'm like, I gotta at least learn some of these things. Besides asking Mitch all the time, gotta hear some other ideas about what to do too when it comes to wrestling.
I love that we have a lot of wrestlers in the gym.
Hmm.
Jiu-Jitsu gets a lot of flack for not having enough stand up and takedowns, because we are the ground, judo nuwaza. Um, So more wrestlers, bring them in, man. I want to get better at takedowns. I want to get the fight there. So
Did you hear, I don't know if you heard this hot take, but it was he's probably like, I think he's a coral builder now, but it was a quick clip. I'd never seen him before, but he was saying he was kind of, maybe I'm the devil's advocate kind of cynical type person. He was like, if you have 13 years to devote to learning it, jiu-jitsu is going to be the best one in the world. But if you only have 2 years, you do MMA or boxing will keep you from doing you like he broke it down to be like, hey, if you're just trying not to be taken advantage of, learn this one. If you're trying to be the ultimate killer with everything, learn jujitsu, but you're gonna devote more time to it. The other one's like, hey, this one's gonna
yeah,
probably show you toughness and the athleticism, but you're only gonna do it for like 2 years and you're gonna be broken for the rest of your life. So it's like, and I
yeah,
was like, that is a great way of putting it because it's very true. It seems like we talked about, it's quite the hill to climb. But once you're at the top of that hill, not much gonna stop you. Not much gonna come for you.
dude.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, there's a pretty popular soundbite of Joe Rogan talking about like what happens if a black belt grabs a hold of you, like
Yes.
like okay, yeah, it's over.
Yes, the
Yeah,
worst. Yeah.
so
He always says it so well too. Joe Rogan just always
he
has
does.
like he just puts it in perspective. He's like, think that you can do these things. You're like, nah, not in the same boat, but very much.
Yeah. I was around, so we talked about, the forever white belt. I was a white belt. I took my first jujitsu class in like 2004. Um, and yeah, but so, and again, the way that I've kind of changed the way that I've talked about it. Um, I dabbled in jujitsu. I went to jujitsu classes here and there sporadically
Hmm.
for years and years and years, never consistently. And so I was around back in those days where, there might have been one or two black belts in Ohio,
Hmm.
and Robin was
Hmm.
one of them.
Hmm.
And I moved down to South Carolina, and there was one black belt available to go train with in the whole city that I was in. And so the idea that you would get multiple black belts onto the same mat at the same time, that was like I go, oh wow,
Yeah.
we
It's
got two of
absurd.
them. Yeah, and now that's Tuesday evening. That's no big deal. And but back in the day, man, yeah, there was no access. You didn't have BJJ Fanatics. You didn't have, I mean, YouTube was here. And I'll say like in 2012, um, that was when YouTube, like techniques for jujitsu on
Hmm.
YouTube, like that's when it was really taking off. People, like that's when the Berimbolo, like everybody in my gym, we were in South Carolina, everybody in the gym was trying to figure out how to do the Berimbolo. And we'd have our YouTube video, somebody have it on their phone and we'd be looking at it. And yeah, nowadays, if you're walking into jiu-jitsu, there is so much information everywhere. Almost too much.
I can get on board with that. It is overwhelming at times, especially if you're still trying to figure out your game, especially if you're still like I I I think as a heavyweight, the moves that you pick to be your move, um, there's kind of a smaller choice than most people, I think, and I think some of that's because the physics of a bigger body don't work with playing an inverted guard for 10 years. Um, using your leg game, make sure you have a solid way to use your legs in the game is cool, but you're probably not going to shoot a million triangles just because you could get stacked really easily, and that's a lot more weight to stack on your back, and you might be like somebody like I don't know anybody personally, but might have bowls a
Well,
disc or two from getting stacked and stuff. So
there's things that you and I don't do probably because we don't want to hurt our training partners either.
that too.
Because we're heavy.
That too.
Big Greg,
Mhm.
uh, Greg and I started standing one day and we were both yanking on each other. And then, and by the way, Greg, how tall is Greg? Is he 6'6", 6'7"?
I think I try not to ask because I'm like he's probably asked a million times.
Yeah, I don't think he cares because he told me immediately like twice. So he is a big dude. Like he's 6'6", 6'7", and he's well over 300 pounds. And there was a point where he looked at me and he kind of stopped and he said, "Hey, why don't we go to the ground? Because we're trying to take each other down, and if one of us fucks that up, that's like 700 pounds coming down on somebody." So I
Mhm.
said, "Okay, all right, let's
Mhm.
go to the ground."
Hey, I had that happen in a competition. I had to face this one dude 3 times, and he got the bright idea to jump guard, and I sat him down as lightly as I could.
Yeah,
He was still done. It was like everybody was like, "You slam." I'm just like, you look at the video. I remember looking at it. It was like, "Poof!" But he was done because I'm 250. You're 250.
yeah,
That's
that's
straight on your
500
back, and you got no
pounds.
legs. That's 500
Yeah,
pounds, man. So
yeah,
like, I'm glad that you said it because
yeah,
there are times where it's like, okay, maybe you're still like I still play the like I'm young enough type of thing, but it's still I'm sitting there just like, what if your knee? Like what if my ankle? I'm like, oh, if I'm like twisting my fingers back and just trying to get up the wrong way with somebody big before, and like had for 3 months my finger was just like not working at all because it's just more weight, it's more physics to deal with, and um, but yeah,
yeah. And then
yeah,
as
no,
you
but
get older, it's why the military recruits 18-year-olds. Okay, eventually, as you get older, you become much more aware of your own mortality, and so I don't want to do things that are gonna, require surgery. My days of doing that. So I want to train in a way that I can train tomorrow.
yeah. Well, like Mighty
And,
Mouse had that comment. He said, "I still got to go to work. These guys still have to go to work on Monday. Like
yeah,
we're in the championships, but hey, they still have a life to live after this." And
dude, he's such a cool dude.
right every time.
He's probably my favorite guy in MMA.
Did you watch the rematch that he had this year versus the guy he beat last year? Uh,
In one FC
no, no, no. It was
or jujitsu.
IBJJF. It was
Okay,
jujitsu. It was the IBJJF. It was the tournament he went to. Um,
like Absolute again, like the
No, it
big
was his
dude.
weight class. It was his weight.
Okay,
It was the Asian guy, the black belt that did the hero's pose right before the match started. But
I
they
didn't
had
see it.
rematched. Yeah. It was cool to watch, but it was like his clip. But he just has just think about positivity when it comes to training. Like, dude, it's just so
Yeah,
happy. You need those
always
people like
happy.
that. Yeah.
Dude, always happy. And I think I think that he is the pound per, geez, I can't
Pound
say
for
it,
pound.
pound for pound goat in MMA.
Oh yeah.
Um, I uh,
Mount Rushmore. He's on Mount Rushmore when it comes to
he's definitely on Mount Rushmore, but I think he's
yeah.
probably the best pound for pound. When the UFC caught him, he was still champ and he had run through his entire division twice.
Mhm.
There was no one else for him to fight. Um,
I mean, the slam to armbar, just iconic out here. Just
yeah, the slam to armbar. The one FC, that might be the last MMA fight I've seen him in. that guy beat him the first time they fought in like the first one of those 1FCs. The second time, I mean, the setup, the way that he had this flying knee that he hit him with, but he put the guy off balance and just sort of like nudged him enough to keep the guy falling backwards until he hit the wall, and then he was there right there with the knee to finish. It was
I
like,
love that clip
who
so
can do
much. I
that?
know. Yeah, and it's like I think of it as like there's of the slow mo like MMA knockout compilations. There's that one. There's the Francis Ngannou knocking out. It's not Curtis Blades,
Bisping.
but where it's where it's like he just comes, he misses them 3 times, and then it's just it's gone.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And then there's the well the Tony
Oh,
Ferguson, he get kicked in the
Overeem.
chin. Over, yes.
Yes,
That's
that
what
was
it
the
is.
Overeem knockout. I'm trying to Dan Henderson's who took Bisping's head off. Yeah.
Yeah, and we talk about. I wonder if Ngannou is ever going to make a second comeback for stuff. Not like MMA, but just like is his name going to come back up? Because he knocked out Wolverine too with his head
Yeah.
shot back faster than I think I've ever seen a human being's head fly backwards. It was and down, and then gets one more just to finish it off. Like
I hope he does, because he was dominant. I really would have liked to see the John Jones and Ngannou fight, which I think Jones probably ducked a little bit.
You're wrong. Wrong.
Which, you know what, I might too. I don't want to fight that dude.
You're right. Well, and John Jones winning back. I was like, I wonder if him winning that belt was a little bit of like, we used to train together and I got in your mental game, because the way that he won the championship, I'm just like, there has to be some trick that he just knows about those.
You mean against Cyril Gahn?
Yeah, against Cyril Gahn, when they were training. I'm just like, the way that he got him down and choked him out that quickly, I'm like, there has to be something that you guys learned while you were training partners that just has Cyril Gahn just like, I'm gonna go out. Yeah. Because it's like Chuck Liddell when he got his last chin. There was just a point where he just kind of went out, and I feel like that kind of happened with Cyril Gahn's mental game, where it's like, I've lost too many times.
I will say this: I could not stand Chuck Liddell. I will give him his flowers. He was a great champion in the time that made the UFC blow up, right? That whole period with the Ultimate Fighter, that first one where it became a mainstream sport. But the man had a sprawl and he had an overhand right. And then I think everybody else evolved around him. And with age, his chin got soft. I don't think Chuck would be. I don't even know if he'd get a contract today. If he was an up and coming guy at this point with that skill set.
Well, that's to the point of the modern age of sports. It's like, I feel so bad, but also so excited for the people coming up in sports, because it's such a high hill to climb so early that you have to figure things out. But also like, hey, it's only going to keep evolving. Like that's what it is. It's about getting better. Like all the time, my brother, cause he does college sports, and I remember being like, you think you could have did this? And he was like, if I would have been, like, we always talk about the 80s and 90s. He would have been like, if I would have been recruited back then, I would have been #1 in the Hall of Fame. Like, it's just a different level of athlete. You're sitting there just like, kids are doing crazy things 10 years before they were ever supposed to. Now they are burning out a little bit earlier. So, we have to deal with that. But
they are. They're burning out earlier.
They're burning out earlier. Their bodies are taking more wear and tear. But I think also it's just like, where do you go with it? It's gonna reach its pinnacle of like, hey, maybe you only like I always think the worst case scenario is like that utopian, like you're only bred to do a sport, and that's the only thing that people like, the only way you get into sports then. But like, it's hard to compete with people who, they get 4 camps a year, they get all this condition, they get a nutrition coach. They got 4 sports. They've been traveling all year. They get thousands of hours at this. Like, there's not really that person of like, hey, this person just came off the streets, or they picked up a ball, or they ran into a coach that when they were lifting weights, and now they're this great sports person at it. And I do miss those times, I will admit.
Well, that's like the whole idea. So like, I grew up in a cold weather state in Colorado.
Mhm.
Kids in Ohio don't play baseball year round
Nope.
because we have snow.
Mhm.
Um, where the kids in Florida and Texas, those kids play year round. And guess what? Those Florida kids and those Texas kids usually will, you know, wipe the floor with Ohio teams.
Mhm.
Um, you
Well,
know,
speed. Where'd
which
they get all their speed from back for a while there? All the receivers were coming from down south, bringing them up north
mhm,
because those.
yeah.
It's just a way, and it was all from the same area in Florida. It was all within like
Mhm.
a mile of Miami University and Florida State, and it was just like they were all from that same street area. And you're like,
You know what's crazy is you have pockets like that in other places like Newport News, Virginia. Like Mike Vick came out of there. Like there were a bunch of really good athletes that all came out of this one little zip code.
mm-hmm.
You have the kids from Cleveland Glenville.
Yes.
That like how can a high school produce that many crazy good kids? And obviously Ted Ginn Sr. was recruiting kids and getting them in, and uh, I I don't know that he was recruiting them, but I think he was recruiting them.
Pays for another day.
you know,
Yeah.
well, what he was doing is he was getting kids that might not have, that were going to go to other, you know, not great public schools in Cleveland, and getting them into school, which is good because I think it had to do with open enrollment,
Yeah. And
where you could go whatever school you want. And if I'm a kid that, has a 40,
mhm.
a good 40-yard dash, um, I'll go play football at Cleveland and go on the Ted Ginn tour. And now all these colleges are going to see me. Maybe I get to go to school.
Oh yeah, it's the exposure piece. Is
Yeah.
as you get older, it's well, one, who do you know, but also can you win a room over just being
Hmm.
there? And some people just that's the one thing you can't coach that. But the point of like LeBron was supposed to go to he was either Bookdale or St. V,
Hmm.
which is crazy because Bookdale just won a state championship in basketball some years ago. I think 2 years ago, 2023. That's what I believe. But basketball is big down there, and it's just like these small, like you said, to that small zip code just has I don't know what it is. If it's just the ideas, it's the cultures. It's like there's a good book is like the athlete gene. Have you ever read that?
No. But I also think that talent improves talent. So
It does.
if you're practicing and playing with people that are at a level,
Hmm.
you're going to rise to that level.
Hmm.
Some people can rise above and become the D3 guy that gets invited to the combine and makes it in the NFL. But usually if you're, if we take it to a jiu-jitsu thing, if you want to be in the UFC, you got to train against other guys that are elite
Yeah,
so that you can get good.
yeah, and yeah, and so I do think it's the thing that maybe sometimes people forget is that like you said the D3 person who's gonna make it to the NFL. It's like I think everybody goes into thinking that they're that person, but you know sports in their ways, you got to admit sometimes that you're just in a different class. But it's okay. It's okay. Sometimes it's okay though. It's okay though because you don't know how it's gonna pan out sometimes.
Well, so I've coached at a lot of different levels, right?
Hmm.
So I've spent my time in college, but I've been around high school and junior high programs, and Pee Wee football, and number one, every dad thinks that their kid is going to be Barry Sanders, um, but the reality
Barry
is,
Sanders is a good point to really put it into perspective.
right? Yeah. So I've seen so many dads that we know that their kid is going to top out at 5'9",
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um, so the odds of him getting a basketball scholarship is small, unless he's got Muggsy Bogues handles. But my point is, athletes are going to rise. You can you know you can help them with the extra coaching, the private coach and the private weight room and those things. But if they are an elite athlete, if they're going to be able to be an elite athlete, as far as children go, in my opinion, those coaches don't matter that much.
no, no,
That athlete is going to rise. That
Yeah.
kid, he's going to naturally run faster than everybody else. He's a kid that can, just lift more than the other kids.
And some
It's
people,
life.
they don't even figure out till they get to like high school and the puberty really sets in. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
remember reading one study recently that's saying like, hey, there's like almost it's like I think a 7% correlation to like little kids, like like 5 to 8 being professional athletes compared to like somebody who didn't start until they were 14 years old. They just happen to be really tall, they got the right person in their corner. And they have good eyesight, so they can make that shot easier. Or maybe even weird ones, they have flexible shoulders. They're
Mm-hmm.
really flexible hamstrings, and they can do crazy things for like wrestling and stuff like that. Uh, I kind of parry that. I always think about like I think sometimes parents or people that are looking over kids put them into the wrong thing because of just a narrative that needs to be there. Like I think back of now as like I look back at my sports career and I've been like, I should have tried wrestling a lot earlier and stuck with it a little
Mm-hmm.
longer. And I should have tried maybe Olympic lifting or something like that. Maybe or powerlifting. And
Yeah,
maybe those would have been like
sure.
I would have been a lot farther than I thought because or track or
Yeah.
something like that. And
You get your kids into football because you played football, and so that's what you know. So that's what you help your kids know. But I will also say this against specialization: a lot of the burnout rate is ridiculous. I actually studied this a little bit. Um, it's been a few years now, but in the Super Bowl, I want to say it was like Denver and Seattle.
oh, that was a
So
good
we're
Super
talking like
Bowl.
10 years ago.
Yeah,
It
Legion of
was not a
Boom.
good Super Bowl.
It was a great
That
Super Bowl
was
for
not a good
me.
Super
I
Bowl.
gotta say, I'm a
I'm a
Seahawks
Broncos
fan. I'm
fan.
a Seahawks fan, so I got
Okay.
it.
Okay, time out. Are you actually a Seahawks fan?
Yeah, ever since
How did that happen?
because I got into football right around that time, and I was defense.
Oh,
But Earl
okay.
Thomas, Richard Sherman, defense. I could deal with the fact that they went, but I just loved it all. So I've been a fan ever since. Geno
Okay,
Smith,
well,
Geno Smith leaving us now. We got Sam Darnold kicking butt. So it's like,
I found the only Seahawks fan in Ohio. Um, I'm from Colorado. I grew up on Broncos football. So anyway, that Super Bowl,
mhm,
getting back to the specialization piece,
yep,
of the 104 or 106 players that were on those two active rosters, all but two of them lettered in multiple varsity sports in high school.
okay,
None of them were specialists.
no,
They all played multiple sports. They all were also wrestling or playing basketball or baseball or whatever. So, we have these high school coaches now, and it drives me nuts. And it's not just high school coaches. It's the travel leagues where
hmm
you've got 12 and 13-year-olds where the coach gives them a hard time because they also want to play football, but they want, the coach for the travel team wants them in playing baseball all year stuff. No, man, you got to let kids do different things. They're going to get burned out. But
hmm
number two, their motor development, um I think the specialization is stunting these kids where they're not developing a well-rounded athletic frame and body and vehicle for athleticism
hmm
because they become so specialized. Um,
100%.
and I think the proof is in the pudding. You look at these elite athletes, and okay, sure, it's easy for them to be really good at multiple sports because they're elite athletes, but they weren't specializing.
No,
Um,
no.
so
To
I
your
think,
point, I well because I was exercise science and that's what I got a good degree in. So when I was on my strength coach era and I was doing my internships and coaching and stuff like that. We got into a lot of discussions and I went to a continued learning seminar and they talked about that exact issue of kids specializing too early. One, you deal with the soft tissue overuse injuries that come with playing a sport year round on a young frame that hasn't done any forces through it. But there's also a very good study that was talking about the shins of people who are runners versus people who do multiple sports. And the one thing that I always thought was fun about it was that the cross sectional area of somebody's tibia, if they did just linear sports, so running in a straight line like track or
yeah,
cross country is a little different versus like they did basketball, they did soccer, they did all these things, and you saw a wider, a bigger tibia, which means more area of the bone to spread force over, which would be because one, you're getting force from every plane of movements, but then
Mm-hmm.
also it means that the bone is going to dissipate that force, and things like falling at the wrong angle or a jarring force is not going to affect the bone the same way. And you're only going to get that if you do a different sport. It's, the set principle is a very important thing when it comes to human body, is specific adaptation to imposed demands. If you only have one force, you're only going to adapt to one force.
Yeah.
So
Do you think that, I mean, and obviously we're getting way off the mats, but I don't care. So,
I love it.
no, it's jujitsu, but we all have different interests in things that we know things about. So in your opinion, having a background in sports science, I don't remember a time in my life that I've ever seen so many NFL players, blowing out Achilles tendons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For a long time it was knees,
Yep.
and we can kind of look at pro turf and say that might be some of the cause. But these blown Achilles, it's been over the last probably 5-6 years. It's a bunch, and not just the NFL. We saw it
NBA.
in Kevin Durant.
Yep.
And
Halliburton.
is that the
And
specialization?
so some of that, there's a good point to that. And I've gone down the route because I know it's the same deal. And the one that's hard. So recently you had Halliburton, you had Tatum, right? So those guys went from an already long season with the NBA, right? So the year before, I think the Celtics won the year before, right? So Jason Tatum went the entire NBA season, 80 games, 83 games plus postseason. Then he went to the Olympics, played in the Olympics, and then had a regular season plus playoffs, and that's wear and tear. So an
Yeah.
issue comes with, long term, but it is true that the time and then Halliburton, same deal. He played in the Olympics and same deal. So long ones. But guys like DeRozan, guys like KD, these guys were, after a certain point, playing so much basketball that your tendons cannot keep up. And that is a big issue that comes. And for kids, it's even worse when you bring it back, right? Because those are adult bodies. Those are bodies that have had time to go through puberty and adapt, and they've gotten off seasons and time to adapt. But kids, you have smaller tendons, smaller forces, coaches that are trying to push you harder because they think it's going to get you there faster. They have the motor unit control, to your point, that they don't have the same neurological ability to contract and respond, regardless of like the stretch reflex, right? The muscle like is supposed to contract. They're gonna wear out. And then to the point of like, I will say a lot of kids don't get hurt when it comes to like, oh, this hurts and this nags and other things like that. All that leads to people getting hurt earlier. Like kids,
What
I
about the
was
dream team?
The dream team?
Dream team. Jordan, Barkley, Elijah. That's probably. My point is, they still had an 82-game season. They still played in the playoffs. They still went to the Olympics. They still won all of it. And I don't remember all of their Achilles exploding.
But they didn't play the same type of basketball. They didn't play the ball gets up the court in 14 seconds and you have a shot, or we go back down. You also didn't have maybe the same travel schedule too. They also had a different, so we always got to say there might have been performance things that they got different supplementation than sometimes the other guys, but they had a fundamental different game to play. They didn't have to jump as high to do the same moves. Like Jordan was a flyer, but he was still less than probably 230, right? So physically, that's very low BMI compared to other guys, and so they just had different games. And I don't think that came with it, but they also had time to just relax. They didn't, when they played in college, it wasn't like they played 4 years of college. They had time for their body to adapt to this harder schedule. Because that's another thing. You go from high school to college, you play 1 year in college. Well, you went from 30 games to maybe 40 or 50, and then you go right into an 80-game season. Plus all the other things that teams try to ramp you up to get playing with too. So like you have to consider the fact that people have not had as much time to adapt to the same schedules. Like Zion's big old body, right? He can jump out the gym, but he also weighs 260 pounds, 260 and 280 pounds. His knees.
When I was watching Zion in college, I was like, that kid he's going to get hurt. He has too much weight on that frame.
And his knees, what happened? When his shoe blew out, Nike was worried about their stock going out. His knee, but he also didn't have the ability to control his hip as he rotated down. He slipped, and he didn't have the ability to externally rotate real quick and not put that into his hamstring and dissipate the force. He was a very naive mover. The one thing I used to comment with him was that he has to swing his arms to get running. He has to go like this to get his body moving. And that's a real
Good
telltale
point.
sign that you weigh too much to get moving. If you're just regular, you can stop, turn, and you can lift your leg and just start running. But he had to go
Yeah.
like this, like he was swinging
Yep.
Thor's hammer to get himself moving. And so that's kind of a thing I always look at when I look at athletes too, is that like you can tell who's had hours with their own body and just moving in general. Like there's somebody who's like, they're really good at beating these people, but they still have a lot of places where they don't have any control. Like you see receivers all the time coming in. You can tell the rookies from the pros, because it's like, okay, that pro just shifted just a little bit extra just to take that hit a little different, just a little bit. But they know, they can feel it. They can still feel pain. They can still respond and move these things. And those things add up, because like Tyler Lockett is a great example that they talk about. They got so mad at him because he would just go down. They're like, oh, you don't want to hit anybody. You're like, well, he's also 5'7", and he's trying to play a game. He weighs 160
He wants
pounds.
to keep getting paid.
Exactly.
Yeah. Did you see this hit Jackson Dart took last night?
I didn't see Dart, but I saw the kickoff return dude who got knocked out.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, that was
Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart running up the side. He comes up the sideline and he's like tiptoeing out of bounds, but he's not going out of bounds, and just got housed.
That's his fault though.
And it was right at the first down pylon, so they had a little camera in there. So like you see him get hit and he just disappears out the top of the screen. And then, the two teams fought over it because, they thought they hit him too hard, because he was on the side, but he wasn't going out of bounds.
No. But that's learning. That's learning not to be a rookie.
He got killed.
That reminds me.
All right. And in the press conference after, he goes, yeah, I play a sport called football. You're going to get hit. And I guarantee his quarterback's coach is going to be talking to him and saying, bro, get out of bounds.
The bad slides. Those ones too. Well, you think about, bringing back the Broncos memories. You remember when Pat McAfee knocked out your 5'2" kickoff returner?
Yeah, I think what was his name? What was it? Trendon
Holiday? Is that sound?
Maybe.
That sounds familiar. But yeah,
that's the name popping up, but I don't. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember when the punter got our guy,
and I remember that hit because everybody, they went to the next play, and I was like, he just murdered that man. And then they 3 minutes later, they're like, wait, let's circle back to see the kicker really do something good. But you're just like, you just want to see a grown man just to take it off his feet. But it's I always the training thing is physically like it's a sweet spot. But I think a lot of people are now capitalizing off of the idea that sports are more lucrative than they've ever been. Parents have more incentive than ever to get their kid that has potential to the next step. And that's causing a lot of people who maybe never trained or never even worked out in their life, telling people how to physically, prepare themselves.
Giving a lot of bad advice.
I mean, there's a trend right now that's like, it's made its loops around the end of I think it was a high school coach, but they're maxing out on split squats. Or reverse lunge, I'm sorry. And this kid has 500 pounds. He's like a 15, 16-year-old kid. He's like the typical skinny frame, but strong. And he's doing a reverse lunge with a single spotter, and he's slamming his knee against just basically the equivalent of this gym floor. And everybody's just in there. It's like, that's a broken kneecap or something like that happening. Yeah. And they're just like, yeah, but everybody's hyped. And I'm sure as somebody who would have been on that team would have been like, dude, you did so much weight. You're so hyped.
But it looked really cool.
Yeah, it looked really cool. But cool, but if you were a good coach, you'd be like, how is that How's that going to transfer?
Don't ever do that again.
Yeah. So there's never been a more important time to be educated in the places that you're participating in, doing a little bit of research to the point, you go to a jiu-jitsu class, a gym that's hey, this is an unsafe place. You probably shouldn't train here because all these other things are going on. But this is a good place because these things are happening. So you still have to be an informed participant. And
there are some gyms that are good for the guy in his 20s. But when he's in his 40s, that's no longer going to be the best gym for him to be in.
Right.
And I think sometimes those gyms that are good for those dudes in the 20s, the whole gym sort of ages and matures.
Right.
And it becomes one of those gyms that's good for the middle-aged professional.
You hear about the injuries that everybody got, and you're just like, I didn't need to feel that. You're like, yeah. It's like, oh yeah, I was kind of reckless back then. You're like, yeah. But Hey,
Yeah.
so, but sometimes those are the best ones to go to then in the future, because then you're like, now they have everything that they're fixing is a solution to that issue that they
Hmm.
had. So,
Yeah.
that's a big piece to always keep in mind. Sorry, you can tell I'm a little fired up about it. I'm just like training.
No, I love it.
As
No,
training
it's
goes.
good. That's you know what, that makes for a good conversation.
Exactly.
Um, I talked to Matt Thornton, the SBG founder, yesterday, and SBG, a good most of their gyms are mixed martial arts
Mhm.
gyms. They have, it's jujitsu, but they spend, if it's not also a mixed martial arts school that also has Muay Thai and those things, they are at least doing a lot of stand up in those things. But Matt Thornton did talk about some of the ways that he has shifted his perspective on how to handle specifically white belts and the fundamentals people.
Mhm.
And he used to just have them roll with the regular class, mixed level, right off the bat, and he changed it um mostly to to protect the white belts. He said, in some parts it's helping the white belts. Some of it was a business decision because you had people that would get intimidated
Mhm.
being in like a mixed martial arts sort of cultured gym, and being in that mixed level class with all these savages.
Yep.
um
So they start doing things that they
but
didn't expect, and yeah, yeah.
right, but what he found is, so the first like 80 days or something like that, when a new student is in the gym, they're not allowed to roll. Um, and they're just doing fundamental techniques. And he actually found over time, so I guess he had a couple of batches of these people had come through, and then some of them wanted to go compete, and he was worried, like, hey, they haven't been rolling live, but now they're going to compete in a competition. How is this going to go? And his students, who had not been rolling with other white belts, but had been drilling and kind of light rolling with black belts. They cleaned the floor. They won. They all won their divisions and their
Fundamentals.
tournaments. These white belts that were
Yeah.
not in the Shark Tank with everybody else yet were doing great in competition. So there's something to be said for having that fundamentals kind of curriculum
Right.
to ramp people into being in the mixed levels. Not only from you learn a little bit of the basics faster doing it that way, because it's not just two white belts killing each other and using stupid shit that they don't know how to do yet. Um, but also you're not turning off the person that says, I don't want to just go get my ass kicked every day for the next, however many years,
Right.
without knowing
And
what I'm
not
doing.
everybody. Yeah, not everybody's built for getting their butt kicked. I will say. I
Dude,
I
it
ran into the
was,
same thing. Well, I mean, like, I
yeah,
remember immediately going back to that, like, you don't get to roll immediately. Like, at my first gym, it was same day, it was a month. It was like, yeah, month, or however many classes you got to at a certain point, it was like hours, kind of basically, like they kind of average it out. But I remember still being like, oh, I've done sports forever, and I remember I was doing like a scramble, and I used my knee like a foot would be used. And I don't think I'll ever do that again because my leg hurt pretty bad. And I was like, it like, but like I
yeah,
landed on my knee and kind of cut. And I remember being like, oh, that was stupid.
yeah.
But I felt fine because of my other experiences. But I'm like, I can still get hurt because I was still within that month to 2 months. So I'm like, even people who've been doing stuff for a long time still may not be, uh,
Did
physically ready.
did Robin have a rule at one point that you weren't supposed to roll if you were two stripe white belt and below?
I've only heard, yeah, if
I
you're only
feel
going
like
to the
he had that
fundamentals.
rule.
Yeah, because Matt would talk about it
Okay.
being in the fundamentals classes, like, hey, you shouldn't go, well, there's that, and then you shouldn't be going to the advanced classes until you've gotten at least a certain amount of stripes too.
Okay.
Because then it's too overwhelming for those people. Like, I know sometimes people sneak in because they're on their trial period, but it was like, okay,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be going to learn a bow and arrow choke if you haven't even figured out what a mount is yet. So that was another piece that I had gotten. But again, it was kind of, I got it when I was already in the middle of blue belts in this, so and I think it's
Yeah.
pretty raggedy. Um, yeah, so it's there's a lot of things. So I'm just glad that there's people are aware about it now. I think the biggest downfall for a lot of combat sports is that idea that you could tough it out, and being informed training is really set a lot of people up. Have we
Mm-hmm.
gone a little overboard with everything has to be optimal? Absolutely. But there's still like, hey, if you train 2 days, 2 times a day for 4 days, you're probably going to be more likely to get hurt. So let's be aware of it. Like that's coming up more often. I love to see that because then it's
Yeah.
about being on. It's being like, the best skill you can have is to be available. Right.
Yep.
So
And that's why I'm implementing weight training now. Because, I've been nursing this neck injury and it's like, I need to be doing these other things so that I can have longevity in the thing that I enjoy, which is jiu-jitsu. So weight training and running and, getting some weight off my frame. Um,
I'm
you
with you.
know,
I'm with you. I'm down some
I'm,
weight too. Matt was telling me how good I
yeah,
look yesterday or so, and I was just like, I feel good. It feels good to
look
get
at
moving
us.
again.
We're going to be walking around like we're not heavyweights.
It's just straight. I'm gonna be out here just straight, just like, hey, Les, look, I can finally do triangles. Like it's not
I
hard.
think, if I get into like maximum shape, I'm still going to be a heavyweight. And I think that, um, my frame, I'd have to get skinny to get below like 215.
I'm in the same boat. I
So
was
I'm
telling,
250 pounds.
I was 257 yesterday. Oh,
Okay.
but I was 268, 269 like a month ago. So I can live with
Okay.
it. Yeah, I was pretty heavy. And I've been floating around that for a while, but I was in the same boat. I was talking to Mish yesterday and I said, like, I said to the point of saying youth, I'm like, in my 30s, I should try to maintain 240. And I said, by the time I'm sorry, my 30s. And then by the time I'm 40, I should probably be 220 or less because it's just going to be
Mm-hmm.
good for health. Will I get there? I don't know. But I just think my knees can only handle so much because when I was, I still have my name is still on the vertical record at my old university. So there's a reason
There you go.
these knees, but they took a beating to do that. So
But you're aware of it. You're aware of your biology, and you're aware of the things that you need to do to be healthy long term.
yeah, and
Um,
definitely using your physician, making sure that you have at least somebody looking in on it. I know as males, we have a hard time going and seeing a doctor, but
mhm.
talking to your doctor, at least because a lot of times you got to remember they don't care if they're not judging you for what you think. They care. They're scientists at the end of the day, and they care more about that solution than they care about, oh, morally you should be this way or something like that. Like, hey guys,
Yeah.
it's easier. It's just say something. Just show up, and it'll go a lot
Hmm.
better. You never even know.
Well, the younger you are when you start taking care of it, the easier it is. It only gets harder to start trying to lose weight or start trying to get in shape or start jujitsu.
Mhm.
Just go do it.
Yeah.
And start, because once you get the ball rolling, it just gets easier. I had a doctor that I, he wanted me to lose weight. My blood pressure was getting borderline hypertensive.
Hmm.
And he goes, what kind of working out? And I said, well, I'm training, 4 days a week. He goes, okay, so I want you to be doing at least this much cardio 7 days a week. And he's like, yeah, he told me he wanted me basically with my heart rate above 140 for at least 45 minutes, 7 days a week, for like 6 months.
Hmm.
And I was like, dude, I'm not training for an Ironman. I'm going to watch my diet. I'm going to work hard, and I'll put some cardio in there. But I'm, you know,
He like negotiated
and
you down
then
on your own terms. You're like,
I did because that wasn't really, number one, that amount of training
not with a
that he
full
wanted me to
life.
do, I might get injured.
Yep.
Yeah, and I have a life. Yes, I do want to be in better shape, but I don't have to. I don't have to 50-yard dash to it. I can maybe run a 400
Hmm.
and get there gradually. So,
Break it into smaller
yeah.
pieces. That's all it is. One
But
lap.
I looked that doctor up after, and he's a triathlete, and I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. That,
So,
that's, bias is a real thing we have.
yeah, for sure.
And like I
All
said,
right, man.
yeah. The best time to
Yep.
do it is what they say. Let's say the best time to start was 25 years ago or last year. The best time, the next best time is today.
Yep.
So
That's the truth. So, you gonna be in class in the morning?
I'm planning to be there bright and early.
Okay. I'll be there.
All right.
All right, brother. Thank you. Hey, thank you for taking the time and coming on here. I've say it to most of my guests that time is a finite thing, and the fact that you're willing to come on here and be a guest on my little podcast means a lot, and I appreciate it.
Glad to be here. I'm honored. Thank you for having me, man.
All right, man. I'll see you in the morning.
I'll see you in the morning.